Okay, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about expanding new teacher supports and the existing resources that can be used to have some greater impact. And so we'll start by first talking about incorporating ongoing supports. We'll jump into some data and communication structures for mainly year one teachers. And then at the end, we'll save some time for an open discussion about how to provide additional wraparound supports for your year two teachers. And at the end of the conversation, for those of you that stay into the end, we'll be doing a raffle for a $100 gift card to Donors Choose. So one lucky attendee will be selected. We'll start with just some introductions. My name is Robert Laws. I'm a client success manager with KickUp. My role is to support our district partners with data collection, reporting, and sharing their data. And I've had the pleasure of working with Keller ISD and Valerie on their new teacher work. And I'm joined by my colleague, Erica.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. We know that most of you are probably anxious to get to that long weekend that is coming up so soon, but we can't wait to hear ideas from all of you. I'm the partnerships manager at KickUp, former early childhood teacher. I taught pre-K through first grade, and yeah, very excited for the conversation and really excited to be joined by Valerie from Keller. So Valerie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Valerie Miner, and I am the coordinator of professional development and mentoring services. Super honored that Rob and Erica and Marisol asked me to join the conversation today. And I'm really excited to share what we're doing in Keller, but I'm more excited to hear about what everyone else is doing so that I can steal some more ideas, because we all know that what we're doing is all because of just collaboration with awesome colleagues. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Great. Thanks, Valerie. So yeah, would love, and it looks like Melinda, you've already done it. Would love for you to either in the chat or if you feel brave enough to unmute yourself and share, who you are, what your role is, where you're coming from, and maybe what you're hoping to get from the conversation. And also if there's something that you feel like you can bring and share to the conversation as well.
Hi, Erica. I'll go ahead and be a brave soul and come off mute. My name is Rochelle Wooten. I'm one of the assistant directors in our Teacher Development Leadership Transformation Department. I'm in Fort Bend ISD, which is southwest of Houston. Something I'm hoping to get is almost like Valerie said, like there's power in collaboration and seeing what's working well in other places. I do think we're at a good place in our district with some of the things we are proposing to do. And this is my first full year of leading the program. What a great year to do that, right, during this COVID season. But I'm hoping that I can also share some of the things that we're proposing to change that would not only impact the first year teachers, but some of that wraparound support that Robert mentioned.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. And thanks for being brave. Are there any other brave souls?
Hello, I am Mario Hamilton. I am the high school math specialist for Spring ISD. And let me see, what was the other question? Spring is north of Houston. It's like the top. And I'm hoping to get is for this particular thing, it's interesting that I recently went around to every school and was talking to all the new teachers. And I asked them to tell me what is something that they wish they knew as a first year teacher. And I really want to support that because we've had, especially during COVID, a lot of new teachers. They're like, I don't think this is a job for me. So there were some we had to pretty much walk off of bring back from jumping off a cliff to say, like they're ready to walk out, like this just ain't it. So with that is the main reason I wanted to be a part so I could assist those teachers even better, besides just, creating curriculum for them. I wanted to be an additional support. And it is primarily for first and second year teachers, because even the second year teachers, they can take a lot of information from that. And, I have started like a collaboration type of thing, but I would like to get some more ideas, some more, something else that can help support our teachers.
Thank you so much, Mario. And yeah, we know that first and second year is always a really hard year. but then add, this past year into the mix, and that just adds to the challenge. So thanks for joining. Maybe one more person to go for it.
Hi, my name is Audrey Weens. I've been supporting new teachers for over 20 years. I'm the induction coordinator for Fontana Unified School District in California. And in California, new teachers receive 2 years of mentoring support and professional development in order to clear their credentials. So I'm really hoping to get some other perspectives on how to support new teachers, maybe some new ideas. And I have some ideas as well because we collaborate in the region I'm in. So good to see everyone.
Thank you so much. All right, Rob, I think we can, thanks. And also thank you all for posting in the chat as well. So just kind of wanted to orient us in the research of Joellen Killion. We know that you all have these new teacher support programs that, have different kind of components of it. So teachers are engaging in professional learning. And what we're really going to focus on today is how you can kind of take this glass box approach where teachers are engaging in these new supports, but how you might be able to use different data, how to kind of critically look at how those supports are going to be able to make changes along the way and ensure that it's as impactful as possible. Can go. So, and for those of you who are less familiar with KickUp, just wanted to orient you in kind of who we are. So we are a team of former teachers we have a software for districts to help them assess and manage professional learning. So we have our professional learning module, which is more of that kind of registering for PD, keeping track of attendance, PD feedback, and then our professional growth module, which gathers formative and summative data, support logs, walkthroughs. Both systems funnel into our analytics dashboard, where you can see trends by school, by content area, by teacher, and districts can decide which pieces of KickUp they want to use. So for the purpose of this conversation, we're really going to be focusing on our professional growth module and how Keller has used some of these tools to help really ensure that all of the awesome supports that they're providing to teachers is as impactful as possible. So Valerie, would love for you to just give everyone an overview of Keller.
Sure. So yes, here are kind of our stats on the slide here. So we are at about 35,000 students, all getting ready to, well, actually, I think they all just dismissed for the year because it's a half day. So we have 42 campuses. We're at about 4,000 employees, and it ranges each year, but normally we have between 100 and 125 just first year teachers that we work with. That's not all new hires. That's just our first year teachers that we support. We are a suburban district, so we're kind of in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're sort of North Fort Worth. And kind of an interesting thing about our district, and this is sort of a recent-ish in the last couple of years, is we're divided into 4 feeder patterns depending on our high schools. And each of those feeder patterns actually have kind of a different focus that they work on. So, being part of the district support system in our curriculum and instruction department is really, we kind of have specialized support for each of those feeder patterns based on, the initiatives that they are tackling within each one.
Awesome. So you're really kind of differentiating support based on the focus areas of the different feeder patterns.
Yes.
Great. So now I would love to transition to really dive into your Inspire Academy. So if you could just share a bit about, the goal of the program and the specific pieces that the program focuses on.
Sure. So, we call it Inspire Academy. It's our first year teacher induction program. It's actually a 2-year program. And we really, our goal is just to support our first and second year teachers. And by doing that, we don't want to fire hose them, even though they already feel like they're drinking from a fire hose at the beginning. So we really try to focus and hone in on those basic skills to run a well-managed classroom. So we're not, throwing all the content at them at the very beginning and all the things. We're really just focusing in on creating a well-managed classroom, developing those strong student-teacher relationships, and then engaging their students. So when we pull them for learning, when we're going into classrooms, when we're coaching them or meeting with them, those are really kind of those basic goals that we focus on, is running that well-managed classroom. And, if the students aren't engaged, then they're probably going to be misbehaving. So that definitely goes hand in hand. I always said, I taught high school, so I always said an idle teenager is a very scary thing. So just making sure that we're keeping them engaged throughout that process. So, just teaching them strategies and things like that. But really, those first couple weeks of school, how can you build that community in your classroom, and how can you start to get to know your students and build that strong community? And we really focus on that throughout our entire program.
Awesome. So then if you could just share more about how you structure the support, because there are, different pieces in the program, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, and obviously I'm sure everybody dealt with this. You have kind of the program that you've been doing, and then COVID year hit, and you had to kind of tweak things because there were different regulations that we couldn't, we couldn't pull teachers and things like that. So kind of generally our structure is we do have a new hire week in August, and the very first day of that week, we do what's called My First Classroom. So it's actually a classroom simulation where they go into mentor teachers' actual classrooms that are in their general same grade level. And in that, they're able to see a classroom. The mentor teacher takes them through setting up the classroom and setting up those first few days. So they spend an entire afternoon just kind of having some intensive hands-on experience with an actual mentor teacher. I think that's the feedback we get, is that's one of the most useful things that they get out of New Hire Week. The rest of New Hire Week, they really spend with all of our new hires. So they go into a little bit of content and ethics training and all that good stuff. And then we also, in a normal year, we pull them a couple of times during the semester. So we'll pull them in small cohort grade levels. And then we have a couple large choice-based days where they get to visit classrooms, and then they get to go to choice-based sessions. Obviously this year we weren't able to pull them for PD. We weren't able to pull them out of the classroom or bring them together as a large group. So we had to get creative. So I did a little last ditch effort in September thinking, how can I connect with these teachers, and came up with the idea of doing EPLCs. So our best friend Zoom, we all got on during their conference periods, and it was in small groups of like 4 to 5. We'd have a short little learning piece, and then they'd have an opportunity to kind of ask questions, and we'd be able to connect with them. So we added that as well. They have a mentor teacher. That's something that we've always had. The mentors really had to step up this year since we weren't able to get to campuses as much. And so we actually did spend some of our unused PD funds to give the mentors a little stipend this year, which I think, just helped me feel a little less guilty for putting some more on their shoulders this year. At the beginning of the year, we weren't able to do, I have a facilitator that works with me, and we weren't able to go into classrooms and visit and observe. But in the spring semester, we were able to do that. So again, just kind of getting a picture of what's happening in the classroom and really just showing them a smiley face. And we always bring them a goodie bag with little supplies and chocolate in it as well. So they appreciate that. And then this year we also added a video coaching piece, which we were going to add anyway. And then, the fact that COVID hit and we weren't able to get into classrooms, it was just kind of an added benefit that we already sort of had that in place. So it's just another way for us to kind of get a picture of what's happening in those classrooms. So overall, that's kind of our supports with our first year teachers. And then with our second year teachers, they don't get quite as an intensive support system. They do still have contact with their mentor. I have less meetings with them. So on a normal year, I'm able to meet with them once per semester. And then in previous years, that's kind of been what we've been able to do with them because it's only been me. We just added my new facilitator this year. And so if they needed something, if they had, questions or a coaching need, then, I would reach out and help with them. I did implement a little check-in form. Like every 3 weeks, I would just send them this quick little Google form that just says, hey, how's it going? What do you need? What follow-up do you need? And I would just kind of go through that, and I would follow up as needed with that as well. but, you know, obviously, and I know we're going to talk about this later, our first year teachers this year are going to need more support. So we're going to be adding some more things to our second year program in the coming years.
Great, Valerie. And it looks like we got a question in the chat. If you could share more about what's included in the choice-based.
Oh, sure. Oh, those are my favorite days. So we call them Inspire You, and like the letter U, like university, but also Inspire You, right? But what is included in those, they actually get a half day where they go with a mentor or one of our content coordinators or coaches, and they observe classes. So it's kind of like a facilitated observation. This year I have kind of a core group of lead mentors, which I'm super excited about. This is new that we've added this year. And so they're going to actually help me facilitate that. And so they're going to take a group of teachers to their campus and take them around to different classrooms. And again, every time they leave the classroom, they kind of have a conversation, and then they talk about how can this apply. The other thing that we do on those days is I actually just pull in like our general counsel. Everybody loves her, and she always has the best, funniest sessions, like how not to get fired and things like that. So we always bring her in. I usually have a SPED 504 session. We usually do, you know, an engaging strategy session, a classroom management session. You know, just kind of anything that we think they might need depending on that time of year. And so they get to choose what they go to. But again, it all really focuses in on that relationship management, student engagement piece.
Great.
I just saw our core mentors are teachers. Yes. So they help me with the My First Classroom. And then throughout the year, I just kind of call on them to help me out with different things.
And then Valerie, I'm curious because I know that, you know, it sounds like you all have worked really hard to make sure that when you're going to visit classrooms, teachers are feeling like it's just grounded in support. You're bringing them chocolate, you're smiling. How, I guess, in the start, like in that initial week, are you letting these teachers know that you are going to be visiting their classrooms, or how is that message to them prior to those visits?
Yes, that's such a great question. When I inherited Inspire Academy, we've added a ton of things to it since then. And that was one of the things I was a little bit nervous about, is how are teachers going to feel? Because I really felt like I don't know what they need if I'm not able to see them in action. And plus, if I'm only seeing them 3 times a year, how are we building a relationship? So it was becoming really important to me to make that more consistent connection with them. So yeah, that's what we do. We just, you know, in our very first meeting that we come together, I get a few minutes with them before they go off into their classrooms for My First Classroom. And so we just talk about, here are the components of Inspire Academy. There's going to be video coaching. It's not scary, and we'll talk about it later. I don't even really go into what that means until later, like September, when I see them again. And I'm going to be coming to visit your classrooms, but I'm just popping in to say hi, to see how you're doing, and I'm going to bring you goodies. And so I don't even mention like, I'm going to see if you're doing what you need to do. You know, it's really just, I just want to pop in and say hi. And so we'll talk about the walkthrough form that we use, but that's really just data for us. Like, I don't really tell, I'm going to be seeing if you're engaging your students. So it's really just, I'm coming to say hi and bringing you chocolate. Tell me what your favorite school supply is, you know? And so when we come for that first time, we don't stay very long the first time, just drop the little bag and wave at them, and just to kind of start building that relationship. I do, though, after we visit the classroom, I always do a follow-up and just like a quick, you know, I saw this, it was great. And if we do see a concern, that's when we would set up a meeting with the teacher. But otherwise, it's a very casual, low stress. And we definitely put that out there at the very beginning.
Awesome. Thanks. And Audrey, I see your question. I think we'll get to that later on in the conversation. So why don't we just move to the next slide, but promise that we can cover that as well. Yeah, so I know that William, you already chatted in, so thank you. If others would you know, chat in, what's part of your program? Just because we know that everyone's here to learn from one another. And it looks like, William, it's awesome that they're working with a specialist classroom teacher. So they're getting that really job embedded, contextualized support. More coaching sessions. Thanks, Erin.
I'll share.
Great.
We have a 3-year support program here in Tyler ISD, and it's also multi-tiered. We have campus grade or content level mentors that work with the teachers on a daily basis. So there's someone that's part of their team. Then we also have a campus lead mentor who takes care of monthly meetings where they bring all of the new teachers on that campus together each month and talk about concerns that they might have, sharing information, sharing ideas. And then we also have district level mentors that are usually retired veteran teachers or administrators that go in and do observations with the teachers in addition to myself. So kind of spread the love a little bit, so they get seen more often. And they help them with classroom management and organization, those types of things.
Great.
I saw Ashley asked, and I think we are going to talk a little bit about that later about how do we make it to every teacher in a timely manner. That's a challenge. And we just make the commitment, honestly, to block out 2 to 3 days a week, which is difficult because of all the other work, but, we just make it a priority. And honestly, I only get to, in the past, I've only gotten to them maybe twice a semester. I'm hoping now that I have that facilitator, we can get to them a little bit more often, but we're not able to get there like once a week or anything like that.
Great. And it looks like we had a question from Kim. Hold on, I lost it.
I know there's so much.
If you can share a little bit more about the classroom simulation with the mentors.
Yes. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is so great. And I have to give a shout out to Louisville ISD, who is also in the North Texas area, because it is from meeting with them that we started implementing this. But what they do is I hire a kind of a core group of, we have about 20 mentors. Those are my lead mentors that I mentioned earlier. Try to spread them out through all the grade levels. And so what I try to do, which is, it's not a perfect science and it's a little bit stressful because, we're hiring all the way up to the first day of school, but is try to put first year teachers in with a general similar grade level mentor. So I kind of block them into like K through 2, through 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade. And so they go into that mentor's classroom. We have kind of a just a general syllabus, but we ask the mentor to talk about how, icebreaker activities, how do they show their kids procedures in the classroom. They do a little classroom scavenger hunt where the new teachers just have an opportunity to just walk around the classroom and ask the mentor questions and get ideas about how to organize, Chromebooks or iPads or whatever it might be. They get time to talk about building community, what the first few days look like, and then just really time for the first year teachers to ask all the questions that they might have at that point. We have in our first year teacher handbook, which we get from Lead Forward, there's actually this 3-page section of the book that's just like all the questions that first year teachers never knew to ask, but need to ask, because most of them don't know what to ask during that. So we reference those pages and kind of give them an opportunity to look through some of those questions too, as simple as like, where's the nearest restroom and how do I get my keys? Just really, things on that they probably don't even know to ask until they're coming up to the situation. So it's just a great time. They spend about 3 hours together. But the cool thing is then they have that mentor in addition to their campus mentor throughout the year. So they develop that relationship and that cohort. And this year we're going to be having them go and visit classrooms together with that original cohort that they spent together that first day as well. So we're hoping to continue to build that community.
Great. And when do they engage in the My First Classroom experience? Rochelle from Fort Bend wanted to know.
Oh yeah, so that's the very first thing that they do. So before all the new hires come back, that very first day of new hire week is just first year teachers. So we do that at the very beginning. It was actually when I first came into this position, they had it at the end of the week. And I just felt like by that point, they were just fried. So I really wanted to get just the first year teachers together. That way too, they're starting to get to know a couple of people before we now go into all of new hire, which is like 450 people. So, they already kind of develop a few relationships in that smaller group as well. So it's the very first thing that they do. We talk really intently about during that time, we're really just giving them the basics to survive the first couple of weeks, because we're going to then start pulling them for Inspire Academy or start our EPLCs after that first couple of weeks of school. So we don't need to give them all the information that first day.
Great. Rob, I think we can go to the next slide. And yeah, Valerie, if you want to just talk about the personalized supports that you've chosen to incorporate and why you chose those supports, that'd be great.
Yeah, so with our mentors, and I've been reading through the chat as much as I can. There's so much great stuff. Like I said, we do try to compensate our mentors. That was something I've been fighting for a while, and we just happened to have some extra money this year, and I think we're actually going to be able to continue. We don't get to pay them very much. It ends up being about $150 for the year, and I know other districts have found ways to compensate them way more, which is awesome. I wish we could, because they work so hard. But the mentors are actually, they have to be trained by the district. So they go through a district training, but the principal actually matches them up on their campus. So it's somebody that we hope is kind of, same grade level or near each other in the building. So it can be just kind of that one-on-one day-to-day support, because like I mentioned, we only really get to the campus about twice a semester. So having someone there every day is very helpful. We have a monthly mentoring PLC that we partner with Lead Forward to supply that. So it's just kind of monthly learning on, here's what your first year teacher is dealing with right now. Here are some ideas for support. We have a mentor handbook that matches up with our first year teacher handbook. So if I tell the mentors, hey, we are focusing on chapters 3 and 4 in this next session. So when you meet with your mentor or with your first year teacher, you might want to just kind of go through that information. So very personalized, very much set on what that first year teacher needs. And I know we'll talk about the forms in a bit, but our mentors do fill out a form every time they meet with our first year teacher as well. So we can kind of track what's going on there. The classroom visits and the video coaching, I mentioned, that's really just a way for us to see what's happening in individual classrooms. Do teachers need extra support? Do we need to be adding something else to our learning experiences for our teachers? Are we seeing trends of things that are missing? Are there trends of things that teachers are doing awesome at? The video coaching is my favorite, because instead of me just popping into the first year teacher's classroom and they could be giving a test, or they could be going to recess, or whatever it could be, that for the video coaching, the teacher gets to choose what they share. So they share just a 10-minute little section of their lesson and whatever they specifically want feedback on. So that is, I think, the most personalized experience that we give our first year teachers, is that ability to just share that one little snippet. Maybe it's something that they want to brag on, or maybe it's something that they're just struggling with that they want to have some feedback. And they have the option to either share it just with myself and my facilitator, or if they feel brave, they can share it with their entire grade level cohort to get feedback as well. So we have a little choice board that's attached to video coaching. And if they complete a certain amount of that choice board, it's kind of however much they engage in that experience, we've actually attached some compensation to that. It's just a little incentive for them to, just engage in that, because it's a little bit scary for an experienced teacher, and I'm asking a first year teacher to record themselves. But honestly, it's probably the most rewarding thing. Gives me the best idea of what they really need. And then with the EPLCs is, like I mentioned, just a quick 15-minute meeting. There's 4 or 5 teachers there. We do just a really quick learning piece. A lot of times, especially in the spring, we talk about required hours and how you get to your GT hours and all that good stuff. Or here's our summer conferences, or whatever it might be. We had one of our counselors do an SEL little piece back in February, but then it's just really a place for them to ask any questions in kind of a safe environment, to celebrate each other, and really for us to kind of make those connections. But again, it's just a way for me to see what are some kind of trending issues that we need to be dealing with, and what are some things that we have some great support on. One thing that's come out of the EPLCs is, you know, we did a check-in in January, and we thought they came back from break, they're going to be okay, but they were in a really bad place overall. And so we on the fly kind of implemented this self-care February where they had a little bingo board, and we gave away like massages and adult coloring books, and we Chewy's restaurant donated free queso for every single first year teacher. So, you know, we were just able to, just because of that, you know, come up with let's focus on taking care of ourselves in February and not worry about all the other things. So
amazing. And I know that there are questions and requests in terms of resources, Valerie, for you to share in terms of the video choice board and that lead forward document. But let's just, we'll power through the rest, and then we'll really kind of spend a lot of the time digging through questions. So we wanted to spend the next kind of piece of this to learn a little bit more about how you are prioritizing, like where to be directing your supports or your mentors' supports. So I'll hand it over to Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. So yeah, I wanted to, Valerie, just like take a step back, and you've mentioned your mentor log a couple times. But if you just wanted to talk a little bit about like how you landed on collecting both of these like types of forms of mentor log and the classroom visit, and just wanted to talk a little bit about like the data that you were hoping to gain from doing those data collections.
definitely. Well, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Learning Forward organization. I'm sure a lot of you are. I'm part of the Learning Forward Academy. And so going through that experience, I realized I needed to be, if I really want to improve the program and the support, I need to be collecting data. Obviously, you would think, duh, but we'd always do like an end of program evaluation. But as far as that kind of formative assessment, we didn't really have that in place. So honestly, I just created Google Forms to begin with, right? Because that just seems to be like the tool that we use. But the idea behind it really is, so going back to the mentor log, and I love the KickUp form so much more than the Google Forms, and we're getting such great data from it. But with the mentor logs, one was, you know, that accountability piece is, are the mentors meeting with our first year teachers, especially for compensating them. Those of you that are from Texas, we looked at maybe trying to get the mentor program allotment from the state. Unfortunately, we're not rural enough, but that was one of the things, is trying to keep that, you know, trying to get that documentation. But honestly, the big thing I get from the mentor logs, and it was so awesome after we got some data, is Rob sat down with us and kind of just helped us to segregate the data to see what was there. But it's really just looking at what are the first year teachers asking about? What are the needs that they have? When I look at the types of meetings that they're doing, what are they focusing on? Is it content? Is it accommodation? So it just gives us, again, a pulse on those day-to-day questions and those types of support that the mentor is needing to provide. So do I need to be adding some more support to my mentor training? Do I need to be adding some more to our Inspire Academy? So it just gives us a great kind of pulse on what's happening there. The classroom visit form, as I've mentioned, is really just for me to see, is what we're doing working, and our teachers able to take what they're learning from our program and start implementing it into the classroom. So all of the questions on that classroom visit form are really just about what are we seeing, because these are the things we know that we're teaching our teachers how to do. As I walk into the classroom, am I seeing the teacher standing up in front, blah, 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 blah? Or am I seeing student collaboration and student voice, and student is excited about what's happening? Are there clear procedures in place? So it's really just kind of a, yeah, I'm seeing it, it's here. Or no, it's not here. And it's great individually, I can see, but also when I look at it overall, what's lacking and what our teachers are really excelling at.
Awesome. And I want to spend a little bit of time at first just talking about the mentor logs themselves. So we just take a look at just a couple visualizations from those mentor logs. You mentioned you were collecting data around what types of meetings or activities they're doing, as well as the topics that they're focusing on. And you're getting that aggregate view. I'm curious just how you're communicating that with your PD team, with your mentors, with others. If you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as we, my team of two, we actually look at this data together, and just kind of just again seeing what are the types of things, because we really, and if you look at mentor observing FY or first year teacher observing mentor, I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more of both the first year teacher having an experience to go into that experienced teacher's classroom, but also the mentor giving, that first year teacher feedback as well. So I see they're doing great on those planned formal meetings. And there's quite a few of those unplanned meetings that are just like drive-bys in the hallway, but how can I really encourage those observations? And I know for a fact that I'm going to have to get those campus administrators on board to help me out with that, which I already have a plan in place to do that. But that just shows me that it's not happening as much as we need to. And when I ask a first year teacher, what's the thing you get the most out of? They always say, I want to see more teachers in action. So how can we make that happen right then with their mentor? So again, it just kind of gives me an idea of, I've got to figure out a way to make this happen, and where do I need to go, and who do I need to pull in and kind of get on board with it.
Do you want to share a little bit about that plan you have to work with those campus administrators? I hear that a lot with districts, like our coaches or mentors are being pulled in tons of different directions. How are you planning to fix that?
So that's, I think the biggest challenge is that we all have our things that we're focusing in on. And I don't ever want to say that my campus administrators don't care about first year teachers, because I know that they do. But it's, it's just like all the things that are happening. So we actually are doing an instructional leadership conference this summer, and I am in charge of pulling that together. So I happened to schedule myself to do a session on first and second year teacher support. But actually it was something that the principals had asked for, because we did a needs assessment. So that's something I want to show them, this data, and I want to show them, this is something that is important. Our first year teachers have told us this is what they want to do. So let's collaborate and come up with a plan together to make that happen. And if that means I find some more sub money in my budget so that we can give release time to teachers, and that's what we need to do. But I really want to kind of pull them in and kind of help me come up with that plan together. I have some great administrators that I know will get everyone else on board. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
That sounds like a really great idea. And I know we want to jump into also talking about the formative walkthroughs. And so you mentioned things, obviously this has been a very difficult year for everyone, and things are been constantly in flux. But if you want to talk about a little bit about like what happens during a normal year and what you've adjusted to this year.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, just as far as those visits, we weren't able to get to them as early in the year. Normally we would start those right away, like the second or third week of school. We were not allowed on campuses for like the first 6 weeks of school. They, obviously just didn't want a bunch of extra people on campuses. We went back fully in person right on very first day of school. So we got started quite a bit later as far as visiting. So I didn't get to the teachers as much as I wanted to. In a normal year, I would book myself all day long from like, I wanted to miss pickup and drop off, obviously, but, from like 9 to maybe 2:30. And I would just pick a section of the district and visit, 6 to 8 campuses. And this was just kind of a self-imposed limitation I put on myself, is really just for exposure. I limited myself to 4 campuses a day this year, just because it'd be easier to track if there was any issue or any COVID, anything happening. So we just limited ourselves to those 4 campuses and had kind of a shorter amount of time that we actually went to visit campuses. Again, this year, we weren't able to get to teachers twice in the fall just because we started late. But normally I try to get 2 to 3 times a semester, and with a second person with me, we can divide and conquer. Next year, I know that we'll be able to reach that goal. But yeah, our visits really are they're just about, hey, I am here, I'm supporting you. I bring them, flare pens, pencils, so that because students steal all their pencils, chocolate snacks, anything that we can find. Like I put a pretty good chunk of my budget just to buy supplies to put in these teacher bags. But, we also do try to give them feedback as well. Like I mentioned, if it's just simple, you did a great job and I saw this, we'll just shoot them a quick email. Loved visiting you. And I loved how you had your students discussing the content. If it's something that, you know, we feel like we need to have a coaching conversation with them about, maybe just, hey, can we stop by or can I stop by and chat with you, you know, or something like that, just so we'd have that feedback piece as well. So that's something we will continue to include in the future as well.
Right. Yeah, there's just a couple of things you mentioned, like the EPLCs and your video coaching that you're going to continue into
Yes.
As you go along. Just a couple, you know, bright lights at a pretty dark year. And in terms of your,
I'm sorry to interrupt. There were just relevant to the last slide, a couple questions in the chat. One about, Valerie, how much time you're spending at each site, and also how many folks from the district are like devoted to the walkthrough work for the new teachers.
Yeah, so I really don't spend too much time in their classrooms, mostly because I don't want them to feel like it's a formal observation. So depending on what they're doing, if they're, you know, in a transition, I might spend a little bit more time, or if they ask me to be a part of their morning circle or something, which is always fun. But most of the time we only spend maybe 5 to 7 minutes in the classroom. And we just kind of see what's going on. I usually snap pictures because we do a little end of year celebration, and I like to have, you know, a little slideshow going. But, you know, we don't spend a ton of time. So it depends on how many teachers are on that campus. We have one high school this year that had like 10 or 12 first year teachers. So we would spend a good chunk of time there. But other campuses, maybe there'd just be 1 or 2. So it just kind of depends. But I would say averaged 5 to 7 minutes per classroom. If they happened when we popped in that it was during their conference, we would just check in on them. So maybe it's like a 2 or 3 minute conversation. How's it going? Here's your goodie bag. Is there anything you need from us, type of thing. But otherwise, yeah, just a 5 to 7 minute visit. And right now, you know, it has just been me, honestly, for the past 3 years, but we hired a facilitator in January, and I was sort of training her this semester. So we went together, but there is 2 of us that are completely focused on first year teachers. It's just a portion of my job. It's a large portion of my job, but her job, she's a facilitator of new teacher induction. So her whole focus is working with our first and second year teachers.
great. And I know we're like a little bit tight on time, so I'm just going to ask a couple of brief questions about these next couple slides. But in relation to the classroom visits, I noticed you're tracking this data point about the in-person, which ones you're conducting in person and what you're conducting virtually. And I was curious if you noticed anything when looking at specific indicators. Were there differences when you were looking at your virtual instruction versus classroom visits? Did you notice there were things you couldn't observe when you're looking at them virtually, or things maybe you noticed that you wouldn't have noticed if you were in the classroom?
Yep, I think the biggest piece with the video coaching pieces is that they focus in on the teacher, which is what we want. So you don't always see that level of engagement of the students, depending on the activity that they're doing. And you don't always see, you know, if there's discourse happening or, you know, things like that. So I think that's kind of the one drawback of the video coaching or the video observations is, you know, we really tell them focus in on yourselves. Now, it is okay if there's students on the video because it's in a secure platform. We're not posting it on Twitter. So, you know, if there's student faces, that's okay. And I got clearance from my legal counsel before we put this out there even. But yeah, I think that's really the biggest difference. Sometimes seeing relationships might be harder, and kind of that student teacher interaction might be a little bit harder. If there's a little, you know, a little friend in the back that's not doing what he needs to do, those types of things will be harder. But otherwise, I think we do get a really great picture both. And I like having both observations because with the video, they get to choose what they show me. And with the pop in, I get to really just kind of see what's happening depending, you know, at any point of the day.
Awesome, thank you. And just to dive a little bit more into the specific data points you're collecting, I know you decided to focus on student engagement and then that well-managed classroom. Was there anything like when you're focusing on these within this, and sorry, my computer's going a little bit slow, but you decided to focus on that student voice over teacher voice. And I was curious if you want to talk a little bit about like that specific indicator when going into a classroom.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure a lot of you probably felt this year, but with the social distancing and the added virtual pieces, like we went 1-to-1 just like that this year. There wasn't a lot of student voice in the classroom. You walk into a classroom and students are on their devices doing their work. Maybe a teacher is co-seating, that's what we call it, where some of their students are online and some of their students are in person. So it's hard for the teacher to really have that collaboration piece. But as we were going in and taking this data, we really realized that we're not hearing students' voices in the classroom. And obviously we all know whoever's doing the talking is doing the learning, right? So that has just helped us realize, and it's not just in first year teacher classrooms, this is overall. I think we've just kind of gotten into, because it was hard. You can't get students to collaborate when there's those shields between them. It's difficult. The masks are a barrier. I found, especially with our teenagers, our middle and high school students, the masks just became a barrier where they just didn't talk to each other at all. So now that makes us think about like what pieces do we need to put in place to help get us back to where we need to be next year. So we've added some summer sessions and really thinking about how do we focus on adding some more easy strategies to get those students to talk, and really having our first year teachers understand why it's important that our students talk. I don't know about y'all, but a quiet classroom is eerie to me. Like, it shouldn't be quiet. It should be like just busy and noisy, and I don't know. So
Great. And then we want to talk a little bit about like just addressing like the communication and your next steps. I know you'd mentioned before, like using some of the data to communicate with others. And if you wanted to talk about leveraging other stakeholders to like address your needs and your plans for your next steps.
Yes, I already mentioned how I was going to bring the principals in and on board with me. And I don't, as far as our classroom visits and our video coaching, I don't go to a principal and say, oh, Mrs. Smith is not doing well. Because I want our program to be a safe place. I want them to be able to safely make mistakes and for us to help them out. But when we do bring principals in, is if there is a major concern, if a teacher comes to me and says they are not feeling support and they have a student that's causing havoc every single day in their classroom, or vice versa, if a principal reaches out to me and says, Mrs. Smith is really struggling, is there anything that we can do to kind of work together? That's when I bring them in. But I never, and I've made it clear with them, like, I am not your evaluator and I am not communicating any of this to your evaluator, because I am here as a support to you and I'm a safe place. So that's really when we bring those in. And I think those principal relationships, I mean, yes, they're key. You have to have that relationship with principals. But for me, most importantly, I am the champion for those first year teachers. And so I make it clear that I am there for them. What's cool about my job is I'm actually part of curriculum and instruction. So I work very closely. I'm in the same office, like all of us are in one room. I'm sure a lot of you have that too, with all the content coordinators. And then we also have instructional coaches. And so if we have teachers that are struggling, if it's a science teacher, I can easily go to the science content coordinator and we can kind of partner up. How can we, come together to support that teacher? So even though it's really just myself and my facilitator that focus on those first year teachers, it takes a village. And we are all supporting them. So if they notice someone's having a struggle, they'll come to me. So we just really make sure that they have that support system in place. Obviously, the mentors are a huge piece of that as well, because they are, they're our day-to-day boots on the ground support system. And again, I try to build a great relationship with them so they feel like they can come to me if they need kind of more support than what they're able to provide.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know you mentioned at the beginning you wanted to learn more about how others are doing with their your Q supports. So Erica, if you want to take it away.
Yeah. So, we know that what's top of mind for a lot of people is, how can we ensure that teachers who are just finishing this first year, which was anything but normal, are supported in the second year? And I do know that there was a question in the chat earlier about also, and I guess this is unrelated to the second year teachers. So we can talk about both, but just about folks who maybe didn't get to have the experience of student teaching and navigating that as well. So Valerie or anyone from the group would love to hear, thoughts, whether it's related to the student teaching gap or thinking about robust supports for folks who are going to be second year teachers.
One of the things for any of you who follow the New Teacher Center like I stole one of their ideas. They mentioned these new teacher learning communities. And so I've already run that by our executive director, and she likes the idea of doing that. And what this would basically look like, and it's interesting how you were kind of touching on some of this, Valerie, is like for that second year, like they could engage in learning around some topics we would provide, but they would be more like a collaborative inquiry circle, similar to a PLC, but they all might not be at the same campus, but they have a common interest or problem of practice that they're working towards improving. And so these would be optional, but we would open this up to our 1, 2, and 3-year teachers, as well as any teachers that are new to our district. And so right now, like what we could think about is like, I've proposed like some that relate to content. It's interesting to hear you say that. And then of course, some around the classroom management pieces, and then some around assessment, which is really big in our district, the whole formative assessment kind of process and what that looks like in a classroom. So that's one of the things that we're looking at doing differently next year to support those 2nd and 3rd year teachers. And it kind of makes our program extend beyond just that 1st year when they have a mentor. So we kind of see it as maybe adding to a comprehensive induction type program, not just a isolated, hey, how about this? You get a mentor and that's it. So that's one of the things that we're doing. But that idea I literally got from the New Teacher Center, but I feel like it's a great fit to start next year for those folks who didn't get a full good year of teaching.
And I am Christina from Western Governors. I work at the university level, and I am really glad that we at the university we're ahead of time, because we use a program that is called Go React. We are at university online. Then for the student teaching, I have been the clinical supervisor for several of them. And it has been like all of you we have been like a 1st year teaching, because we have been like trying to be really flexible in how to do observations, even though they were online, like you were saying right now, they didn't have the full experience. Then we have simulation classrooms where they go and they have avatars. And before getting into the classroom, and actually I just had a conversation with a student, and she was booking an appointment with a simulation class, and she was asking me, can you give me some hints? And the only thing that I was telling you is everything that we are preparing you is what can prepare you to get in the classroom. The situations are different. Then I don't know what situation you're going to have, but by you knowing classroom management strategies, you're going to be able to do something. But they have several students. They have even ESL students in those simulation classrooms. But we have done the observations similar like this, where the teacher is there, you have the students, and they are also teaching face-to-face. Then it was like having 2 screens, and a lot of involvement with the teachers, because we needed to know that the students that were in the video had permission from their parents to be part of that observation, and they had to give us a video as part of the observation as well. Then it has been a little bit of everything and a lot of communication. I felt that I had more communication with principals and with the teachers that were observing them than years in the past, because they also were learning, like, how do we do this? We want to do this. How, it was kind of collaboration and more conversation. But I agree with you, Valerie. There was more conversation from the teacher than students.
Hi, my name is Angela Brown. I am the director for the Department of Coaching and Induction in Broward County Public Schools. And going into how we support our 2nd year teachers, we have a program where we support our teachers up to their 5th year of teaching. Our 1st year, all new teachers get a full release induction coach that work with them inside of the classroom. But the 2nd, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year, we have what we call peer teachers, lead teachers, and master teachers. And what we do after that 1st year of when they finish the induction program, the coach, the principal, the leadership team of the school, and one of the supervisors for the induction program, they sit down and they discuss the needs of that new teacher. Do that new teacher need continued support? And the reason we have the 3 levels of teacher continuum with peer, lead, and master if it's a new teacher that principal wants to continue to stay with them and work with them, but they need content support, then they need in-depth support, they really have some good skills, then we assign them a master teacher. If it's a new teacher at the end of their first year and they just need to be a little bit of continued support, they're really strong and they're well, we assign them a peer teacher. And then the lead teacher is like that intermediate. So we look at, and it's like a prescription for each new teacher after their first year, and we provide them that support up into their 5th year of teacher, because we constantly looking at our data and it shows, and I know you guys know nationally, we're losing teachers by their first year. So we have a wraparound program for our teachers from day 1 up until their 5th year of teaching. And a lot of times we're seeing, because the support is so strong, by 3rd year, you can drop that support off, but we still continue them with a peer so they can have that go-to. When they have their evaluations, if they know that administrator is coming in or after their evaluations, if they're weak there, then that peer may say, okay, let me assign a content person to come in and work with you in this area, or someone who can just bounce something off from a parent complaint, or et cetera. So we continue that wraparound support for our teachers up to their 5th year.
Wow. That's amazing that they're getting that continued support for so long.
And another thing, I'm sorry, that people are like, well, how do you do that, and how you do the resources? With our teacher leader career continuum program, what we did, it's not additional funding. We asked our principals to identify people who wanted to be trained, clinical ed trained, to go through our coach credentialing, to who wanted to become teacher leaders for their school, because we wanted to build capacity. If you have someone new coming to your school, these are your go-to. So each of our schools have either peer teachers, lead teachers, or mentors. So these are people that's on the site that has went through in-depth training. They went through all of the culture responsive training, the coach credentialing training, they have the new teacher support training, and they have all of the content. So it's not that it's additional resources to a school that this is difficult to do. These are people that's already at the site. The only thing that we do as a district, we provide them substitute money, because sometimes we may need to relieve that mentor teacher to go in to observe that teacher to see where they're struggling at. So we may need to cover that class for that person, but that's the only funding that we're putting in the program, and it's very minimal.
Man, I wish that we had another 30 minutes or an hour. I can't believe we're at the hour. Thank you all so much for joining. We do urge you, and we'll send the slide so you can do it then too, but to give us feedback. Hold on. And it's in the chat as well. Rob, can you share a little bit more about the NEA, what we'll be doing with the NEA Foundation?
That part I'm not familiar with, to be honest. I thought that was you.
I'm sorry. I think that we'll be donating. Marisol can write in the chat about that.
Right.
I apologize. And then the next slide as well, definitely go to our website to download some free resources to really support your coaching and mentoring programs. And thank you, Marisol. We're going to be donating $5 for every feedback response that we got. But thank you all so much. I know that when I was a first-year teacher, like the support that I had from my coach was what made all the difference in the world. So feel just so grateful that there's so many people out there who are so committed to ensuring that new teachers get support. And Valerie, you are amazing. We feel so honored to work with you. And it's just so inspiring to just like always hear about the robust program that you've put together for your new teachers in Keller.
Thank you. I love working with you guys. If y'all aren't already working with KickUp, you need to. They're amazing and so supportive and wonderful. And I did drop my email in the chat. I see a lot of like, let's collaborate. I'm all for it, y'all. I'm all about stealing ideas from each other. So, you know, drop me an email. I'll put it in there one more time because it probably got lost, but would love to put together some collaboration too for anyone who's interested. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful, almost long weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.